And welcome everyone to LoneStarVarsity.com. I'm Zach Long. This is Phil Torigno. Once again, time to talk football as it pertains to the high school level on the South Plains. And Phil, not much left here. We are down to the final weeks of the season. If you're going to make a move, got to do it now.
Oh, there's no other option. It has to be now, or else I would normally say they'd be playing golf. You know, but that really only
basketball
matters.
Maybe?
Sure.
Basketball, whatever season's next, yeah. Some team seasons will end this week because they'll just be mathematically eliminated. But, hey, a lot of them have a chance to improve their district standing, so a lot to play for. Let's talk about last week's storylines, and you had a bunch of them to choose from. And number one, you did well picking this one out, the Monterey-Coronado game. We told them to go to it, didn't we? And yes. by God, if you went to that game, you were entertained. Just a ton of points scored.
Well, I appreciate you giving me at least a little bit of credit for that. I was prepared to call you out rather in front of the audience if you didn't, say that I picked that one correctly, because I've been chastised for not, a week ago.
Phil's on his game, folks. He deserves the credit. I'll get you a cookie, I swear to
God. Yes, basically in this game, the storyline, for those of you that have probably read about it by now, the thing that I'm most fascinated about is the unanswered points that Monterey put together. I think that's huge. Their defense did hold up, and the defense for Coronado is really a question mark. There's so much star power, at least in terms of 6-8 teams on the South Plains with both of these schools. It was a matter of which one, just sort of was able to edge it out.
Folks, go watch Vincent Johnson play football. The running back for Monterey, he has gotten faster from his junior to senior campaigns. Really good football player, really one of the true hidden gems on the South Plains in terms of Division I talent, in my opinion.
Right.
Speaking of my opinion, one of my favorite mascot names in all of sports everywhere, Floydada. The Whirlwinds, Phil, just a great name.
I agree.
They're playing football, too.
They're playing very well. When I did my feature a couple weeks ago on Abernathy and I was in Darrell Daly's office, he said to me as we were going through the other teams in district, watch out for Floydada. I mean, we haven't seen the best of this team. And I was obviously skeptical, but he sort of convinced me because they use like a hybrid running back quarterback in Aaron Chavarria. Now, this is a player who's absolutely outstanding for them. He had been really set back with an elbow injury, so we had not seen them. But this team has done very nicely by winning 2 games in a row over Olton and Tohoka, and now I'm going to get out to see them this week. And I think that they could potentially, obviously we have to see what New Deal ends up doing, but they could potentially end up finishing second behind Abernathy.
Got to see Floydada early in the season against Slayton. Deceptive running game, big athletes up front. That is a team that's going to get better, and guess what? They have. Speaking of getting better, Muleshoe. No surprise to me whatsoever because I'm a huge believer in Coach Wood and what he's done with that system. They're getting better as well.
Right. I think that they've sort of been quiet the past couple weeks, and maybe that's in part because we haven't, sort of brought them up that much. But this is a team that had started 1-3, and that was kind of concerning, I guess, at least looking at them on paper. But then you realize the teams they played in a Sweetwater, in a Perryton, and in a Seagraves. I mean, that's a pretty tough stretch.
Right. And, the thing about Muleshoe is playoff experience. Very experienced team. If they get into the playoffs, get the right draw, watch out because they can score points. Right. We know that for sure. Speaking of scoring points and scoring ejections and various other things, the Levelland Estacado game last week was a festive one, and it yielded some of the best performances of the week, especially Levelland's quarterback.
I mean, this one was just an enormous performance offensively, for both of the teams. And Estacado did some really strong things as well. But what stood out to me is, once again, the sophomore for the Lobos, Nick Gerber. I mean, he finishes 31 of 53 for 449 yards passing. He runs for over 100 yards, combines for 7 touchdowns. I mean, this is a really impressive showing from a sophomore. And he's shown really, really great patience here this year.
And that's going to pay off, especially the next couple of years for Levelland, having that experience back there. And this next young man, Phil warned me. He said, watch his name, Zach. So I'm going to make sure I don't butcher his name. Simon Hawkes from Brownfield. Yeah,
once again, the Cubs are rolling, too. They picked up some really nice wins, particularly against Denver City. I did not pick them in that contest. They had a really convincing win, and they're 4-3 right now. And, looking ahead, I think the biggest, win that would be an enormous upset would be Shallowater. Right. But aside from them, I'm not sure they can pull that off just yet. But aside from them, they have 2 other wins they can definitely get. So this has turned out to be a pretty nice year for Brian Welps' team, considering they were breaking in a 14-year-old quarterback.
Exactly. And, folks, that district's going to be fun down the stretch. The final 2 weeks, highly entertaining, especially, as you alluded to, Shallowater Brownfield.
Yeah.
That could be a fun one. On to this week, because there's some fun games here as well. We got a Thursday night contest back at the old Plains Capital Park Lowry Field. Did it right again, didn't I? How about Pampa and Estacado?
Well, I think if there's a team now that, admittedly, and I can't sugarcoat this, we did make fun of the Pampas and the Borgers last week.
A little.
just a tad. But I think pretty much looking at Pampa beating Seminole, that sort of says that they're here to play. So I think Estacado, how they'll fare against Pampa, will be really telling to see if they wrap up the district. Because right now at 6-2, they're looking extremely strong, and this is probably the last test that they'll have.
Absolutely. And the second game of the week here, Cooper and Plainview. And Phil, I think we were ready to hand that district to Cooper, the Lubbock variety of Cooper.
Yeah.
Plainview last week opened a few eyes.
I mean, once again, huge offensive performance there in taking down Abilene Cooper. And I felt this for much of the past month, that the only team with a shot in this district really to challenge Cooper would be Plainview. They're just very strong and methodical, in their running game. And I think I'm not ready to say that I'm confident that they can beat Cooper, but obviously if any of the 4 other teams, this is the one that's going to make this game
They can score points. They proved that last week, absolutely. Yeah. Now the district we just told you that was going to be fun the final 2 weeks, here's where the fun starts. Denver City at Shallowater.
I think this one is huge for Denver City. I mean, Shallowater is obviously the favorite, but Denver City is a team that had started 4-0, and they got tripped up a little bit the past 2 weeks. I want to see how they can rebound.
Phil, where are you going this weekend?
I'll be at Plainview Cooper.
That's going to be a good environment out there. Have you been to Cooper yet?
Not for a game, just for practices.
You're going to love it out there. They treat you as well as anyone does in the country. Really good group out there. Should be a hell of a football game, too. A lot of good football games this week, right, Phil?
Excellent.
Absolutely. So follow Phil on Twitter. Go to LoneStarVarsity.com. Go to LubbockOnline.com. Pick up the paper. Pick up your iPad. Pick up your phone. Read Phil's stuff. He's going to keep you informed of everything you need to know about the great state of Texas and the high school football on the South Plains. For now, though, we're going to bid farewell. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
He's so sick of me right now. You're on LoneStarVarsity.com. I'm Zach Long. That's Phil Torigno. We'll see you next time.